Today I'm going to show you how to dribble a basketball for beginners. I'm going to give you some things that will instantly improve your handles, as well as give you progressions that you can go into, so as you start getting things down, you can keep advancing your ball handling ability. Coach Jesse Minshew with Get Handles Basketball, where I show you how to play like the pros. Click that subscribe button and click that little bell icon. Very first key tip we got to pay attention to when it comes to dribbling the basketball is don't do that. Don't slap the basketball. Sometimes I see players when they're starting, they'll slap the basketball, but most players know better. But they don't maximize that pushing motion. So what you want to focus on when you're dribbling is having what I call a high ball in hand time. When you're dribbling, you want the basketball in your hand for as long of the dribble motion as possible. This is a low ball in hand time. Notice how the basketball is kind of floating on its own, this whole space here. If I get my hand lower on the release of the dribble and the catch of the dribble, that's a higher ball in hand time. So we want to try to get a high ball in hand time, and we want to make sure we're pushing the basketball, gripping the basketball with our fingers wide on it, dig into the basketball a little bit so you can get a good grip. Other key tip I want to give you on this is at the end of every dribble, make sure you're snapping that wrist, especially with your dribbles where it's coming from one hand back into that same hand. So like your inside out or your regular dribble, and using that elbow joint to get some power at the end. Now when you're starting, there's a couple things you want to focus on. Number one, working on dribbling slow, but at the very end, getting that snap on the wrist and the elbow. That'll give a good little pop to the dribble at the end so you can float it in the hand, getting you an even longer ball in hand time. But the other thing you'll want to do is also work on more quick dribbles where you're just dribbling it hard and fast, and the whole motion is snap, 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 and there's not that float in between. That'll get you sort of that different change of speed that's important. When it comes to the crossovers, it's a little bit of the wrist, not so much of the elbow, more of the shoulder that's going to give you your power. So notice when I do my crossovers, look how my shoulders swing side to side and I snap my wrist at the end. Hands are close to each other, close to the ground, so I can have that high ball in hand time. Okay, this next tip is a weird one. It's actually gonna be a lot different than what your coach is probably teaching you, and pretty much everyone teaches their players. But I found this helps players a ton, and it's to look at the basketball. Your coaches are probably always telling you, don't ever look at the basketball when you're dribbling. You can't see what's happening on the court. I completely agree with them. But if you're having a hard time with like your between the legs dribble and it's hitting off your leg, or you're losing the basketball on your crossover and you're always trying to look up, how do you know what went wrong? You can't tell, oh, I hit my leg because I didn't swing my arm through my legs on my between legs, or I lost the basketball because I pushed it too far sideways. You can't figure those things out when you're getting started if you don't look down. It makes it a lot harder. So rep things out at first with your head looking down at the basketball until you get the feel for the move. Then when you get the feel for it, get your head up and keep it up. Next big thing to focus on is getting the butt down, feet apart. What that's gonna do is get my hands lower to the ground, right? We talked about how having a high ball in hand time is important. I can have a higher ball in hand time if my hands are lowered to the ground. Getting my butt down and thinking about sitting in a chair and getting my feet apart. If I bring my feet apart and I don't have my butt down, my hand's not very low to the ground. If I have my feet together and my butt down, my hands still aren't that low to the ground. But if I do both, boom, my hand can touch the ground here. Getting those two keys in place is gonna be important, either in the squat stance, a lunge stance, keeping those hips down. That'll also make it easier to get your between the legs dribbles down. The other variation of it is somewhere in between, which is what's called the split squat. Not quite a lunge, not quite a squat, somewhere in between. From time to time when you're playing in games, you might want to come from upright and then drop down to sell some fakes, or come upright to put your defender to sleep and then quickly drop down to go. But for the most part, you want to try to get in this low ready stance when you're about an arm's distance from your defender. Next big thing that you're probably going to want to jump into is doing more moves, right? Behind the back, spin move, between the legs, all that stuff. But before you do that, one thing that's going to make you effective in games that's more important is your footwork. So here's a couple things you can work on. Dribbling and jabbing out with that opposite foot. Working on jabbing with the same side foot. Stepping out, stepping out, stepping out. That'll help you sell fakes. Allow you to get a good first step to start going past your defender, all of that. Key tip I want you to focus on with this is keeping that ball back though when you're doing those, right? You don't want to have the ball come way out here where the defender can steal it, or if I'm taking this step, having the ball here where they can steal it, I'm going to keep it behind my butt, behind this leg. Of course though, we would do it with the right hand, stepping out. Stepping out. The next step you can work on is the cross body jab. Very important step. This is how I recommend most players do their first step, but it's also great for selling a fake. So if the left hand is dribbling, the right foot's gonna step to the left side. Get it long, low, and quick, okay? Like this. Then step back, And then of course you would want to work on this with the other hand, right? Just like this. Okay, from there, what you can work on is scissors. Deadly setup that you can use to get past defenders, go into a bunch of different moves, and a lot of the best players in the game are great with the scissors. You can have both feet on the ground in more of a lunge stance, jump, and switch leg positions. Now when you're doing it, at first you might want to jump a little bit higher just to make sure you're doing it like this and not like this. It shouldn't be 2 steps, it should be 1 hop. And when you get better, and to make it work in actual games, you want to make sure you have it down where your feet are low to the ground when you do it, and you stay on the balls of your feet. So it'll look like this, okay? You could do that, of course, also with the other hand. And also notice, what am I doing with the basketball? Keeping it behind me, right? So this way it's protected. Another key tip you can focus on for all this stuff is having that offhand that's not dribbling in front of the basketball so you can protect it from defenders. We're ready to start jumping into doing some more advanced type moves. The first one is the between the legs. You want, of course, your legs apart, right? If you try to do the between the legs with your legs close together like this, you're gonna have a really hard time, right? Because there's really not a big window for the basketball to go through, and you can hit your legs. Get them apart. Get the butt down. What that's gonna do is not just only give you a window, but by getting the butt down, I can now swing my hand through the legs. Imagine there's a sheet of glass between your 2 legs and you wanna break through that glass. The basketball goes through every single time. If you don't do that, it can hit off your leg. Same things would apply with doing the reverse between the legs. So the only difference with that is you're coming from the back and bringing the ball to the front. You could again do this in all your different stances, but swinging that arm through is gonna be key to making sure the basketball goes through. Behind the back. There's 2 ways to do your behind the back. First is to have your feet squared up like in a squat stance and push it like in a regular crossover motion. The swinging of the shoulder is gonna be the same. The wrist flick is gonna be the same. Only difference is instead of doing it here, we're just bringing the basketball back here a little bit more to swing it through. Don't drop the basketball like that soft. I see players do this all the time, and because of that, they never really have a good behind the back. They can't do it quick in games, and when you do it like that, now you have to look where the basketball is. So you gotta get in the habit of pushing the basketball hard. If you do that, after a while, you'll start to get the feel for it. 2 other key tips that'll help you. When you release the basketball, slap the same side butt. If you do that, you're gonna get a good consistent release on the dribble every single time, and your body will start to get the feel and know where the basketball is gonna end up, so you don't have to look at it. Next big tip is to have the second hand that's gonna catch the dribble low to the ground, waiting to get it. So you wanna push it hard, get this hand waiting down low to catch it, and that way you can get the feel for it when it's coming into the hand. So now as it's coming up to the side of the hip here, you can have control over the basketball. The other way to do behind the back is a little bit different. This one, you actually might need to look at it from time to time. I watch the best NBA players, Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving. When they do this behind the back, almost every time they look at the basketball for a split second. So it's okay, but try not to look at it for the whole motion. What we're gonna do with this one is slap the opposite side butt. So if the left hand's doing the dribble, I'm gonna slap the right side butt so it wraps the ball more forward. This is good for more on the move to attack. The other one's good to stop quick and then read what your next best option is. This one's good for covering ground more forward. Last move I'm gonna cover for you that is a must-know move is the spin move. A lot of players get this one kind of mixed up when they're first learning it. Starting more of a protection dribble like this, so you're sideways to your defender or to the hoop, and then pull the ball back. That's a big key tip. I see players all the time, they'll switch hands here and then push. Big no-no, because if you do that, if you're my defender, you can steal the basketball as I'm completing this spin, get an easy fast break layup. So we wanna make sure when we're dribbling, we're pulling it back, same side foot comes back, and then we switch hands. And then you repeat the other way. Switch, okay? And then as you get better, you can do it starting from more squared and pulling it back. Starting more squared, pulling it back. If you haven't, click that top link in the description down below. That's a free workout that'll help you take your handles next level fast. It's already helped thousands of players, and I'm sure it'll help you too. Just click that link, pop in your email, and I'll send it to you right away for free. Click that subscribe button and that little bell icon to get on that notification squad. Stay tuned for more and make moves today.